everyone, I'm Ashley of @cosplay. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a super big, super cool foam cosplay sword. In this video, I'm making Skye's Epic Swords of Wonder from Fortnite, but you can use this process to make any sort of swords. In fact, I used this exact technique to make my Yara Greyjoy sword from Game of Thrones. It's a long process, but making foam cosplay swords is not as hard as it seems. So let's get in. I just hit the ceiling. If you're looking to make this sword in particular, you can find a link to my templates in the description below. This is how I make any template for any of my large props. I bring an image of the actual item into Illustrator, scale it to about my size, and then outline it. Then I break it into 8.5 by 11 sheets that can be printed, cut, taped together, and finally make your big template. Here it is all laid out. I can kind of get a sense of scale here and make sure that it works for me before I really go to town on this thing. Looks pretty good. Right here, I'm just trimming the excess off, that way I can tape it together and have it be exactly the size that it needs to be. I also had to cut the entire thing out, that way I could actually trace this onto foam. Before you get to making your final product, now is a good time to kind of hold it up and see what you think about the size compared to your body. I was pretty satisfied with this, so I went ahead and went forward with it. Don't forget to cut out the templates for all the little details too. Now it's time to crack into a fresh roll of foam. This one is from TNT Cosplay Supply, who I've been using ever since I started cosplaying. I have a roll of 5mm foam and 10mm foam for this. I went ahead and started tracing out the base of my blade onto 10mm foam. I'll need 2 pieces of this that are going to end up sandwiched together. I quickly cut the shapes out so I wasn't dealing with a giant sheet of foam, and then I got to carefully cutting out the blade. It's important to use a really sharp blade, and foam wears it down really fast. The trick to doing 10mm foam is to cut about halfway through at first, and then on a second pass, cut the rest of the way through. You'll get a very clean cut as long as your blade is nice and sharp. Cutting around some of the curvy handle details was tough, but it's okay because we'll be cleaning it up later in the end. To get the blade sharp is the most important part. It was here where I realized my blade was already pretty dull, so I went ahead and snapped it off and started with a fresh one. It definitely makes all the difference. The pieces are definitely floppy here, but don't worry, we're about to fix that. But first, while we're already cutting, let's cut out our detail pieces on 5mm foam, also from TNT Cosplay Supply. So yeah, our sword is kind of floppy right now, but we're gonna fix that using this dowel wood. You need a strong piece for the core, and dowel wood's like 99 cents at the store, so it's a great solution for this. I just need to trim it to fit the blade all the way down through the handle. So here's me just casually sawing away on my kitchen table as one does. You know, casual. But in order to get this to fit in between the 2 pieces, we're going to need to create a little divot, channel, piece area thing. I just find the center of both of the blades, trace out the shape so I know where to cut, and well, I'll show you what to do in a second. I make a channel for the piece of dowel wood by cutting at a really strong angle, like, what is that, 45-degree angle? I don't know. Basically, you're going to hold your blade at a really strong angle to not cut through the foam, but just inside the foam. Then repeat this on the other side of that mark that you traced. And you should be able to peel that section out nice and easy. Well, as you can see, I kind of had some struggle with this. To me, it's better to do smaller cuts and go back and cut a little bit more rather than accidentally cutting all the way through your foam. So just take your time with this, you'll get there. I did this on both pieces, and now I'll be able to sandwich them together with a nice piece of dowel wood in the middle and won't have any bumping or weirdness going on. We'll just have to glue it together now, but it'll look so nice. It's time for contact cement! This stuff is amazing, but it's also super nasty, so be sure to wear a respirator or make sure you're in a very well ventilated area. Also lock up your pets so that they aren't getting fumes either. Now we're just gonna go to town coating both pieces of foam completely with this contact cement. Oh, it's happening! Now it's time to sandwich them together. Take your time doing this, try to line up the edges as best as you can, but know that you could go back and we're going to clean this up in the end. You just want to make sure that channel is right around your piece of dowel wood and it'll look nice and neat and be super sturdy. And look at that, not so floppy anymore, is it? Now we gotta make it look like an actual sword. Before I start cutting away all willy-nilly, I'm going to take out my template again and translate some of those dotted lines onto the actual sword. This will kind of help serve as my guide as to how much I need to take away the foam to give it like a fake sharp edge thingy. With that done, I'm going to start chopping away at this thing. Let's grab our really sharp blade again and go to town. This is the part where it kind of actually feels like you're forging a real sword. I'm chopping away at an angle, kind of using those lines as a guide as to how far up this angled blade should go. I'm also trying to not cut past the part where the two pieces of foam meet. That way it's nice and in the middle, if that makes sense. And here I am still shaving away. It's helpful to have a reference photo in front of your face just to kind of remember what you're doing. It takes a little bit of time, and honestly it's just easier to take away more material rather than trying to fix a mistake when you go too hard at first. There are ways to fix this, but, slow and steady wins the race. But we're not going to stop at only the blade. I'm also going to shave away some pieces on the handle too, that way it makes rounding it out in the end a little bit easier and will fit more comfortably in your hand. It's really starting to look like a real blade now. But now's the best part, sanding. So much sanding. Please wear a protective mask for this, as well as some protective eyewear. You do not want these sand pieces in your nose and your sinuses, and it's not like I'm talking from personal experience or anything. And off we go. I started with the handle because it felt like a little bit less pressure, But just beware, you're going to be doing a lot of sanding. Like, a lot of sanding. I mean a lot. Like, my hand was tingling by the end of this, but it also felt so good. I was so excited. You can really see how covered in foam dust I am. It's messy, but like I said, this part really feels like you're forging a sword. It's kind of really fun. Just take your time. After I did the bulk of the sanding, I'm just kind of hitting it with my heat gun. This kind of pretty much melts off some of the fuzzies that sanding leaves behind, but I'm still not quite done smoothing it out. I really wanted this thing to be smooth, so I hit it with some sandpaper, and also this stone attachment from my Dremel that really sort of smooths things out. This is how she's kind of looking now. You can see that I still have some more imperfections to sand out. But once I was done sanding and happy with it, I was able to finally put on my little details, and this is where it's starting to really look like how it should. But wait, if you thought we were done sanding, like done, oh, you were wrong. When I said we'll have a chance to fix some of those mismatching edges, this is what I was talking about. Now that everything's pieced together, I'm hitting it with my Dremel again and just sanding all the pieces down so they look like one connected unit. And we keep sanding. And sanding some more. Oh, right, and then I totally forgot about this little blade detail above the handle, so I just quickly traced that on and cut it out. And guess what? I sanded that too! And after attaching that, the construction was finally done. Look how cool it looks already. I was so excited to paint. In order to seal foam, I chose to use Plasti Dip on this project. There's a lot of other methods, but this one was nice, especially because swords tend to get beat up and, oh, I guess I'll just flick that bug out of there. There's no not awkward way to film this, so pardon my Birkenstocks. I'm just spraying that on, doing a nice heavy coat, and I repeated this for a total of 3 times on each side, just to make sure it was totally covered. The fully primed piece was looking pretty nice, unlike my feet that just had to be in this shot. Before I got to spray painting the handle silver, I masked off the blade pretty carefully, that way the silver would just stay where it's supposed to stay. Then I hit the handle with a nice shiny metallic silver paint. It's so shiny. Once dry, I ripped that sucker off so I can now mask off the handle instead and get to painting the blade. And here I go again out here in my Birkenstocks, going crazy with a glossy blue paint for the blade. I just had to include this clip of me peeling this part off. It's so satisfying. Look how shiny! Now that the bulk of it was painted, I went in to finish it off with a lot of careful hand painting. I mixed a lot of paints and just took my time and really did what I wanted to make this sword look cool. I chose to add a nice little leather detail on the handle that just looked really cool and, you know, kind of felt really nice in my hand. To really make the blade pop, I decided to go back in with a mixture of white and blue to kind of add these cartoony highlights to those ridges. It really made all the difference and I'm glad I added this. After a nice clear coat, she was done. This was so exciting and so fun to work on. Look how cool I felt. Shing shing. Thanks for watching. It's been so fun to see what you guys have made following my tutorials, so be sure to tag me in all the cool things you make. My handle is @cosplay on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. See you next time.